Hi guys. Okay, another Thursday night. Hope y'all are doing well and you ain't too cold or wet or where you're at. Temperatures are starting to go cool here now. It's 54 now. It's been up in the 70s since the rainstorms came through. So it we still had a little bit of warm. Now it's going to drop back cool. Now that oscillation will come in and we'll have to see the temperatures drop for the week probably. So just the way it is. Alabama, we go from heater to air conditioner and back in the same time. Good evening, Mount Kephart Outdoors. How are things going in the Carolinas? Hiram, hello. Sparrow, hello. Hope everybody's having a good day. I need to shave, don't I? Well, when you're old and you do what you want to do, you know. Gary, Terry, hello. Killingsworth, hello there. Jared, Oliver, hello. Joe, good evening. Mr. Kennedy, hello, good evening, sir. Hope things are going well with you. Yeah, me and Bear got together today and went and we did a video that'll post tomorrow about how to take broom sage and make a pot scrubber. It's one of them simple skills that the old Civil Wolves can learn to do real easy, and it's where you can get the grandkids to help out or something you can go out in the yard and make right quick that you can give to the missus and hopefully get some brownie points, stuff like that. And Barrett asked me to show him how to make one a while back. So now it's January and the broom sage is perfect right now for harvesting and turning it into these projects. So we stopped and grabbed some broom sage and made that. That'll post tomorrow. And hello, Ronald. Hello, Gordon. And with any luck, and then we did an old ways where we talked about a book that he's found that it was, we're not trying to badmouth the writer of the book in any way, shape, or form, but their choice in a certain section kind of left a little desired and doesn't have a lot of depth to it. And so we just wanted to address that a little bit. But other than that, doing pretty good. Well, next weekend, now let's see. I'm going to that private invitation camp out next weekend, which is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Not this one, but next weekend. And so there will be a Thursday night live next week. And then I don't think I've got any conflict for the rest of the month. So we should be able to do this every night. But I got good news. Well, those of you that watch and are interested in the cap and ball probably saw my video today. I have just got back in the house from getting the wife and dinner and everything else, and I have not had a chance to check. But I'm pretty sure that my video posted today about shooting the Kerr round conical bullet in my 1860 Army, that man, it loved it. It shot very, very well, and so I placed an order and got in a Kerr revolver, a Kerr mold, and so I'm going to be casting more of those. I want to see how they do out of that Rogers and Spencer with that big heavy charge behind it. Could I push it on up, because with just a round ball I was getting 950 to 1,000 feet per second out of a round ball. And so if I could put that 225 grain into it and get somewhere around 900 to 1,000 feet per second, that's 45 colt. And that would be more than usable for deer and hog at close range. So that will be coming in the near future. I've been very impressed with that conical thus far. Hello, Clint. How you doing? Junior hockey. Not so much down here in the South. I've only met one or two people here in the South that followed hockey. Down here, it's all, football. And it's either they're into baseball, basketball, or football. By the vast majority, it's football down here. And I bet you if you put a gun to the head of half the Southerners and said, name 5 hockey teams, they couldn't, I probably couldn't come up with 2 names of a hockey team. So it's just not something we see down here. Lieutenant Green, good. Update on that, Gordon. We for Bear, it's been a rough month for him. But what happened was we got it up, we got it established, and we were setting up a computer for him to be able to edit and post on his own. And I can report now that as of this week, we got that computer completely set up, and he now has it and is getting it set up. So he's got the tools now to take all this footage he's already shot and edit for himself and start posting. So next couple of weeks, we should have stuff rolling out on a weekly basis on Bear's channel as well. So that's the hope. Everything's gonna go. Good evening, Justin. Anything goes. Hello there. Errol, oh, I hear you. Right now, we had, I think last night, we're right at the full moon. And I could hear the pack back over here this way on the next street over, because I'm in Woodland. Okay, there's a town that way, but this is like a sub area outside in the woods where you go over the crest of this hill and you go down into several hundred acres of just woods, and etc. And back that way and back that way, same way. So I'm kind of at a crossroads, and I was listening. The Codys were going to singing, and then you hear the little ones kick in. So they have their babies right now, and they're taking them on the little nightly jaunts, looking for, they'll make a kill, and they'll go to hollering, and you'll hear all the little yipping as the little ones are coming up and learning how to go to the kills and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. Blackbird haversack update. End of this month, I believe, is the next one supposed to be coming in. I believe we said the end of this month. And so those will be coming into the month, and I'll be shipping them out. As I understand right now, everything's on point, and we're still doing good. I sent a message to Jay, who manufactures my stuff, the other day, and he said everything's going well. So I expect probably a week or 2 weeks from now, they should start arriving to me. I've already got everything labeled and ready to go. As soon as they show up, I just fold them up, put them in the bag, and they're on the way to you. So everything's on track that it will be coming this month. If you paid for this run, it's coming. Ford tractor mechanic. That's cool. I love listening to a pack of them. Them singing and all like that. I really do just love it. And years ago, I was out in my study editing videos that wasn't going out just right. And it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I stepped outside for something, and there was a pack running up my street, going from the big woods that way, going toward the swamp that way. And they just cut through the housing area. And they were running up my street, probably about 10 or 15 of them. And once they got over the crest of the hill where it goes down into that swampy bottom back there, they stopped and went to singing. And I stood there and listened to them probably 30 minutes. I loved listening to them sing. Aaron, yes, I will be doing more GI Canteen cook set cooking soon. In fact, I got my canteen out 2 days ago and cleaned it up just for that. And I'm going to be doing a couple for the Silver Wolves, showing some quick canteen meals that can be put together real quick. Some of it's stuff I've already covered. I'm just kind of refreshing for them because they may not have been around back when I did it back then. And that's the problem a lot of times me doing videos. It's like I said, well, I covered that. When did you cover that? And then I go back and I find that video. Well, I covered it in 2011. Yeah, okay, you might want to update that there, old Sparky. So I have to go and kind of evaluate that. But I'm gonna be doing more of the canteen cup cook set in the near future. Longbow Banjo. Hadn't heard of his channel. That's cool. Worm Wrangler, I hear you. Just hang in there. It's coming. Blackie, can you give me an idea how to make a black salve from plantain? Okay, any kind of the salves or etc. You're going to have your base, whatever you're going to use, of a lard, or you're going to use tallow, or you're going to use suet. Suet is actually a little better. And you're going to take the plantain, you're going to extract from it, you're going to transfer it into the base. Um, Lita, the lady that makes my gun butter, and I are going to be doing a couple of videos in the near future, because she not only makes soaps and candles and my gun butter, but she also makes other things like you're talking about poultices and stuff like that from herbal type deal. And so we've got plans to do it. It's when, and I'm thinking it's probably going to be April because of conflicts, that we're going to get together, and I'm going to go down there for about a week, and we're going to do a series of videos where we're going to talk about how to do extracts, tinctures, stuff like that, make poultices out of various things. If you understand the concept of how to make a tincture, make a poultice, make a salve, that's the hard part. Then you figure out this raw component, like plantain, you do it that way. It's like filling a glass, with ice, and then what flavor you put in it. The glass, the ice, the lid, the straw is the hard part, the flavor. And that's what you learn to make salves. From that, you can make it into whatever. And I have seen my family made, and I've learned to make in times past with lard and stuff like that, made salves, drawing salves and stuff like that. Red oak bark, uh, made into a thick tea, boil it down to where it gets thick, almost like a gravy. And then that became a poultice, and it was for a skin problem, and it was to draw, because we had skin that was weeping, it had been damaged, and it had a lot of damage to it. We'd coat it with that, and it helped draw up and keep the infection down. That was back in the days when you're poor and you couldn't afford to go to the doctor. Hello, Berg. Just talking about you a minute ago. Jason, how wide of a cylinder gap on 1860 is acceptable? Number one, as long as the cylinder will rotate and not drag. That's the thing. If it's so tight where you drive that wedge in and the cylinder actually drags, you look at the face of the cylinder, it's got a shiny, too tight. How big open is too much. I typically say if you can pass a dime through it, it's too big. But a lot of that clearance can be taken by the wedge, because that wedge, you have the center shaft of the base pin, and then you have the wedge coming across, and then you got the other two side walls that are the barrel. And this pin, the wedge, takes that of it apart, and that wedge can wear and allow that gap to open up, because more slack comes into the wedge of it being pinched between these two forces, and the sides of the wedge kind of get hammered down, and it makes that gap open up. So the first thing I ever say to one that's too big, change wedge and see if that tightens it up. What is too tight? If the gun gets hot and starts to foul and it starts dragging and wants, you got to reach up there and hand turn it, then it's too tight. I had in one of my videos not terrible long ago, that Colt that I got, that 51 Navy with square back trigger guard, was too tight. And with just the wedge just barely in place, it was binding and dragging. And so I opened it up quite a bit to guarantee. Now that I've shot it quite a bit, it's got a pretty good sized gap on it, but it is not causing trouble. So with a cap and ball revolver, number one, as long as it's not dragging, but everything else seems to be working, go with it. If it is dragging, you may have to the back of the barrel. I prefer the barrel instead of the breech face. Take the back of the barrel and just sand it lightly to see if you can get a little bit more opening. And I have even sanded the side of a wedge before to give it just that little bit of slop so the barrel can go away that grunt more. As long as it's not dragging, you're okay. Check this out, Blackie. How did you get enough time to do your stuff before you're tired. It's a nonstop problem for me to get enough time to shoot and clean up after the use. Fouled a Kentucky long rifle. It is a ongoing job. I'm here to tell you. Um, Cleaning up a gun quick, hot water is your friend. I would come in, plug the touch hole. If it's a fixed barrel like a Jaeger, but I can't take the barrel out like a Hawken, I'd plug it, turn it where the front sight is down. Here's the barrel, front sight's down. I would then usually get me a little funnel, put it up there, and I'd fill the barrel almost all the way to the top with hot tap water. Maybe a drop or two of Dawn dishwashing liquid in it. Stand the gun up. Leave it 5 or 10 minutes. Come back, pour that water out, do it a second time, stand it up, give it 5 minutes. Pour that water out, take a wet patch on the brush and go up and down and break anything loose. Add water to it about halfway up the barrel. Put your thumb over the top, shake it real vigorously, pour that out, and then run a wet patch up and down until it's clean. You'll clean the gun in 5 or 6 minutes that way. Actual cleaning time, the total time from beginning to end, 25 minutes or something. Where you're actually hands-on physically cleaning, 5 or 10 minutes. Hot water will dissolve it and get rid of it once it's completely coming out clean patch. Put it muzzle down on those water paper towels, or I used to have an old bath towel I had just for this purpose. And put the muzzle down and stand the gun up and let it drain so that water comes away. Now wipe off, of course, the rest of the barrel with a damp rag to wash it, dry it, and then oil everything. And that's how I clean my guns and do it. A lot of times I'd come in, put the water on it, stand it up, go to the kitchen, wash up, come back, dump, and then after dinner, physically clean it in just a few minutes. You just got to find those couple of minutes here or there, and if you dial it in quick, you can get a lot of stuff done in a short amount of time. Tennessee Smoky, ever used a slingshot for taking small game? When I was a small boy, I did. That's when the wrist rocket had just come out with those surgical tubing ones, and I got pretty good with that sucker for taking rabbits and taking squirrels and birds out of the local fruit trees and stuff. But I have not played with it since I was 9 or 10 years old, to be honest. Now I've got friends, man, they were good. They would go squirrel hunting. They were slingers. They'd take that tube and put it over their neck and just hang the thing on the front of the chest, and we'd go walking around. He'd spot one, he'd have it out, take him out of a tree as clean as a 22. I just never had that kind of skill. But I have seen people that had that kind of skill, one. Clint, I hear you got new gear. It's just it just gnaws on you. I can remember us going into me and my granddaddy going into hardware when I was like 10 maybe, and me looking at the knife case. Every time we went in that hardware store, I had to look at the knife case. And him saying, you don't want a new knife, you want a new adventure. You want to buy a knife to have an excuse to go camping to try out the new knife. Why don't you just take your old knife and go camping and save money? And he was right. Man, I want to try out all of them. So having new gear, just, got to go. Rich, thank you very much. Happy New Year to you. What knife am I using? If you're talking right now, I'm playing around with my knives as far as my belt knives. Of course, my WC knife, the Blackbird, is my favorite carry of all. And I've been playing around with the Condor, the Martini, and a couple of others here lately, just, sitting out on the deck in the evening and let the dog run and have fun, sit there and whittle and play. So I've been playing with quite a few different ones here lately. Aaron, I hear you. Well, Don, thank you very much. Have I ever used crossbows? I did. Well, you got to understand, in my home state of Alabama, crossbows were illegal up until the late 90s. They could be used for just target shooting, but they couldn't be used in hunting. And so I used a hickory bow that I built. Um, and I really never even got in that much to compounds. I had an Oneida Eagle at one time, one of the very first Oneida Eagles, and that thing was ridiculously overpowered. Um, and then I thought about getting into crossbows, but we couldn't use them in my state, so you couldn't hunt with it. Today you can, and I haven't got into it, but it is very appealing, especially for a quiet way to hunt, not attract a lot of attention. Crossbow might be the way to go. Well, hello, Rachel. How you doing? K Town, yes, on my knives, I use a leather strap quite often. My favorite leather strap is my leather belt that I wear every day. The salt has become kind of impregnated on the inside from sweating in this belt during the summer months. Take it and run the leather through the buckle, wrap it around your leg, sit there with your leg up on your knee and wrap it, pull it straight to you so it's a tight strap and sit there and strap. And that does a good job on mine to strap an edge on the knife. Good evening, Rumble Strip. How you doing? Clint, exactly. Learn new skills. Get out there. What you want a new knife? You just want to get out there and enjoy something. A good excuse. I mean, we used to do that is like, I got a new coffee pot. We got to go. Okay. New rod and reel. Well, we got to go fishing because you got a new rod and reel. Does this rod and reel do anything that the old rod and reel? Oh, yes. Oh, it's light year. Yeah. Probably by the end of the day, you're back on your old rod and reel just because you know it so well. So, Team Lotus, how do you avoid flinching? Okay. This is going to sound crazy, but I've done this and it's really helped people shooting flintlock. You're going to have to take a flintlock and you're going to have to get about a half pound of powder, of 4F powder. You're going to put up a target. You're not going to load the gun. You're going to prime the gun. You're going to bring up center up on that thing as tight as you can. You're going to touch it off until you burn a half pound of powder in a row. Not all at one time. You can do it over 2 days. But I taught a good friend of mine how to shoot a flintlock, and I just took a half pound of powder and I said, when that half pound of powder is gone, we'll start actually loading. Point at the target. Pull. When it gets done flashing, are you still looking at the target? Don't worry about the flash. Look at the target. Keep your sights on that target. Ignore the flash. Look at the target. Well, first you're like, you're doing like that. And barrel's jumping all over the place. 30 or 40 shots later, it jumped just a little. 100 shots, it barely moved. And by the time we actually started loading it, he didn't even acknowledge the flint would already flash. He didn't even blink his eyes. You've just got to condition yourself. So let's take the recoil and the boom and the bam of the gun away from it and just concentrate on that flash. And I have found it's a good way to break that flinch because it's flinch and then the bang. Well, you've lost accuracy because you jumped. You closed your eyes and you jumped. So let's just take the gun out of it and let's just work on the flint part. Start without even priming it. I want you to look at sight in on the target. Close, cock, sight in on the target, take your breath, let it halfway out, squeeze it, clack, hold, 1, 2, 3, reset, click, cock, sight on target, take a breath, let it halfway out, freeze, clack, 1, 2, 3. Muscle memory, train your body. When you can do that and you don't even jump because the frizzing flint, now start priming it. And when you get to where you can keep the sights on the target after it goes flash, load it and start. Till then, you're kind of wasting ammo. Fred, hello there. How you doing? Clint, oh yeah, Zebco 33. In fact, I just bought a Zebco 33. I'm going to be putting on an old rod of mine. I'm going to be doing some fishing this spring. Aaron, would a hammock or a tent be better for winter camping? I have done both. It's going to depend on your environment and how warm a sleeper you are. If it's going to be very cold, a tent is better because it makes a microenvironment around you. Having said that, I have camped quite comfortably and been fine wearing proper clothing for the temperature in 17 degrees in my hammock and been fine, because I have a uh, underquilt, the underquilt blanket, then the actual hammock, and then I have the cover that goes over the entire hammock and has two air holes up here, and it cinches up in the bottom like a rain hood. Think of like the mosquito net, but this covers the whole hammock in a windproof barrier. It's also waterproof. It's got two panels made into it of mesh so you can breathe. Okay. You get into that, and I cinch up the bottom, and that stops any air draft coming in the bottom and flowing around me going up. And then I've got wearing proper clothing, and I've got a really good sleeping bag on top of me. And I've rode that down to 17, 18 degrees and been toasty. Never get cold, never wake up with my feet freezing or whatever. Just wake up in daylight. And then you don't want to get up, So it's really about personal choice. It's really about your own, how well you sleep. I have done both. And if I'm not sure, I'll plan on a tent and bring a cot to get me up off the ground. The problem with a cot and a tent is how much insulation you still got to have around you. The advantage that the hammock does have is if you have an outer quilt, it's not compressed insulation. Laying on the cot, you're compressing the insulation. Same thing with putting something inside of the hammock. And so by putting it on the outside of the hammock, it's insulation per inch per me. And I'm actually warmer in my hammock with proper insulation than I am laying in a cot in a tent. So, just me. Jackie, I hope it's good in Mississippi. That's where I'm going to be going to Mississippi in next weekend, over near Decatur, Mississippi. I think it's the name that's close to it for the private get together. I'm planning on doing video for that, so we'll show that. Farrell talking about the crossbow. Yeah, they used to be legal here as well, unless you were handicapped. And that was about the only way I knew you could hunt one, was somebody had to be handicapped to have a crossbow. Rumble, have I thought about using a Lee Improved Mini with your 50 cal? I have not. My 50 cal that I use is a 1 66-inch twist, and it's too slow to stabilize most of those conical shapes. Yes, it will fire one. I've tried in past. I have tried Lee real, which is rifle engraved at loading. I have tried Mini balls. I have tried all the above, and it produces adequate accuracy, but the round ball was always more accurate. Now, at the same time, I've had good friends that had the one that was the one in 44, 45, whatever it is, the fast twist that was stable for those, that they had very good accuracy with the jacketed saboted bullets and stuff like that. As good accuracy as any rifle off the shelf after 100 yards. But they couldn't shoot round ball worth a flip either. And I'm just an old traditionalist. I shoot round ball. So I have played with them, but I have not got any for mine. If you're talking about that orange lighter that I got, that $50 lighter, it's held up, dude. It rides in my fire kit. I filled it up the first time, and they tell you don't overfill it. Well, here's the secret to it. Go ahead and overfill it. Don't make it sopping, but you know what I mean. Fill it. Screw it too. When you open it up to use it, you unscrew the cap on it. It's going to be damp where fluid has come up and been trapped in there. Fan it a minute to evaporate it, about like that long, and fire it up. Nice big hot flame, run it, does great. Put it out, screw the lid back on. That thing rode in my haversack 2 years, and I never had to refill it. It did not evaporate in my Alabama heat. Being left in the back of a truck when it's 140 in that truck, it never evaporated out. It was as solid as a Bic lighter as far as when you hit it, it had fuel. And so I like it a lot better than I do the Bics, because I can refill it, but unlike a regular Zippo that'll evaporate in a couple of hours in my heat sometimes, this doesn't. And so, yeah, it's an investment. I'm not going to lie to you. $49 is a lot of money to pay for a dang lighter. But I'm very happy with mine, you know. And if I wasn't, I'd tell you. You know, that's one thing as you guys know, I have a lot of people come up to the manufacturer and they go, "Oh, Blackie, we want you to have this." And sometimes, yeah, I'll say, "Oh, sure, I'll take that and I'll try it out." I'll give them honest feedback. But the deal I always tell them from the beginning is I'll be happy to take a look at your product and give you honest feedback. But understand that if it doesn't perform, or if it's a piece of junk, or I personally cannot see a reason for this piece of gear, me buying it to give away even, then I'm never going to do a video, because I'm not going to promote something just because it's junk. I'm not doing it. On the other hand, if there's a problem with it, I'm going to contact you and say, "I think you need to improve this." I'll return your product if you want. It's only if I would carry it or be willing to give it to somebody I care about to use, realizing whatever their level is of skill and ability. That's the only way I test gear. And I bought that lighter, and I had a little YouTube money. I was $50. How good can it be? Planning on, if I didn't like it, I'd give it away at one of my gatherings, and it's still right in my fire kit. I have no doubt right now if I pulled it out and fired up, it'd be ready to go. And so that's the reason I hang on to it. And I like the fact I can refill it whenever I want to. Hey, Gray Wolf, welcome to the party. Finding Outdoors, good evening. Well, now, Aaron, go look at the One Wind Outdoors. Go look at their stuff, because the price is very good and the quality is a hell of a lot better, just to be straight up, than you would expect for that price. I mean, a $49 hammock. Oh, how good can that be? Dude, I'm here to tell you, those hammocks are tough. The underquilts and everything else. It's not super ultralight stuff. It is not meant for you guys that want to weigh every gram. I'm going to tell you right now, no. But if you're predominantly short range hikers, or you're going to be car camping or something, just looking for good gear, yeah. The price on them is a fraction of a lot of them. There was I won't mention any names, but it was a company that was out of the Midwest, and they make hammocks. And my friend Dan Lutz was looking at one of their hammocks, and they wanted $450 for that hammock. And it didn't even come with suspension straps. It was just the hammock for $450. Wow. And what was the weight limit on that hammock? Well, that weight limit was 450 pounds. And we didn't know what the One Wind weight limit was on the full-size hammock. My full-size hammock is 11 feet. Dan ended up with a 12-footer. And so I contacted the manufacturer and I said, "What's the weight limit?" And she said, "I don't know. What do you want?" We had to translate a little bit. "Oh, weight limit. We'll find out." So she did a video of them in the factory. They went and put the thing up between two poles inside the factory, and were taking 100-pound sacks of cement and throwing them into the thing. And they put 10 100-pound bags in and said, "Is that enough?" I went, "Yes, ma'am, that's enough. It's alive that she's talking to me. 1,000 pounds on a hammock?" That's the reason I put Dan Lutz in it, because that was a big boy. Dan was 6'8" and right at 400 pounds. It never squeaked. It never gave. Never had any trouble. The tarps, all of it. I'm recommending that if somebody don't have a lot of money, but you want good serviceable gear, go look at the One Wind stuff. I'm not doing that because I've dealt with them. I'm doing it because it's honestly, for the money, you can't beat it. I've looked at some of these $700-800 hammocks. Yeah, they're very nice. Does it do anything that this $45 one from One Wind doesn't do? Not that I could tell. My entire kit is One Wind stuff because they keep bringing my hot tent that I'm going to be doing is a One Wind. $200 for a hot tent that I showed in that recent video that's 8 foot across at the back at the ground level where you'd put a cot. I can walk into it upright and it's that big rolled up. It's smaller than most tarps rolled up for that size of tarp, and just, yeah, $200 for that. Wow. So go take a look. If you're on a budget and you're wanting to get a hammock and an underquilt and etc., go look at their stuff. I think you'd be surprised. Oh, Sean, what I was wearing around my neck, it's actually a leather tube. The Fuel the Fire group gave me that. It's a slider, and it's just made out of leather. And they hand cut or stamp, I guess, that logo, and it's the flames. And I just traced it out so you could see it better. And I wear it as a neck slider. Sometimes I wear it around my neck, especially in the winter. It's something to close this up and have a quick handy handkerchief. Longbow banjo is a hammock turkey proof. I think it'd take a pretty good hit. Do you use a homemade or commercial produced fire starter? Fat wood is abundant here. A little of both. Usually I just prefer fat wood. I carry with me multi-layer. I have homemade stuff. I have a block of flat lighter in my fire kit, and I have a couple of those discs and the tape that you can pull out that's basically wax paper that you can burn. I have multiple kinds of tinders because usually in my neck of the woods, finding kindling is easy. Certain times of year, finding that fine tinder is the difficult part, and don't want to have to sit there and make feather stick, fuzzy sticks, or whatever. I prefer to be able to just pick it up, crap shit up, and go. I carry quite a bit of different tinder options depending on what the conditions are. Joshua Johnson, anytime, glad to be of help. Is anything turkey proof? Yeah, there's quite a few things that are turkey proof. One, it's a guarantee you'll never see. Turkeys will never bother you or come near you if you make any kind of noise in the wrong place. Yeah, we saw, in fact, me and Bear was going to grab lunch today at this little local burger place here local. We pulled up to the drive-through, and as we got to the drive-through, he turned, old woodsman like him, he spotted it, nailed him, went, turkeys. And we looked about 400 yards across that field, and there was this flock of turkeys going across the edge of it, probably 400 yards out. He had it that quick, so yeah. But I bet you if I'd stepped out 400 yards out on the edge of that field and looked at them, they'd been gone like that. They can see so well. Fred, do I have a budget-minded bushcraft, cheapest gear possible? In the years ago, I did one talking about starting, and I talked about starting out with cheaper knives and cheaper gear and stuff like that. And I did a pretty good video, 2 or 3 videos along that line. I know a lot of channels have done like the Walmart challenge and etc., dollar store challenge or whatever, and found cheapest possible gear. And so I have not done that, and I might do that. What would be the cheapest? Like I said, the cheapest knife, a Mora. For the money, Mora. Just go ahead and get a Mora. Smoky Mountain Knife Works. Pick you the Mora you like. It'll be good service. It's not a pry bar. You can break them. but they hold an edge well, they cut well, and they do most of the bushcraft jobs really, really well. And so more for a tarp for the money. If you're hunting a 8x8 tarp or something like that's a sil nylon, look at the one wind tarps. They're good. Very reinforced, very good to go. If you're looking for a canvas shelter, possum pouch, he's got that 10x10 with all the ties and loops all the way around it. You can set it up in 100 configurations. So if you're going that way, if you're looking for haversacks, something on the cheap end of haversacks, Jason Hunt of Campcraft, Possum Pouch has haversacks. Bombproof has haversacks. There's a lot of companies that have haversacks. You've got to figure out what your budget's going to be, etc., and work your way up. Fire starting kit, start with a Bic lighter and work your way up. You know, a little of this and a little of that. You can improvise a lot of stuff. Knowledge is the important part. The more knowledge you carry in your head, the less BS you carry on your back. Because I can get this to do multiple jobs, I'll carry this instead of toting these 12 other items. And that comes with experience. And like I said in the coming old ways with bear today, there was a phrase my granddaddy had. He said, he had made a statement, and I said, I didn't believe he was correct. And he said, well, either you're expressing your experience or your ignorance. Which is it? Either you've got experience to know that this doesn't work, and here's why, or you've got ignorance because you're dismissing it and not even thinking about it. So any gear you're going to haul, carry, get, whatever, your experience will teach you what you can do multiple jobs with and not have to carry. And your ignorance will teach you everything. Because when you get out there and you're wet and cold in that rain and wet and mud, and you can't get a fire going with anything you brought that worked so easily back home, poof, and there it was. And now you are cussing up a storm and you just can't get this to work. Your ignorance has given you experience. Ignorance is the key to all experience because you thought it'd work. And that's how we learn. That's how you do better. So, cheaper gear, start out. Great thing to do is go look at your Goodwills and your stuff like that, your yard sales and stuff. People are all the time getting rid of camping gear and find something that works, as far as cook sets, etc. Clothing, look at military surplus clothing. You see me wearing it a lot. I can get dirty. I can do whatever. Like my military pants have got double knees in them. Great for getting down on a knee to do something by a fire. It's more durable. It doesn't wear a hole in your pants so fast. Double butt seats on them. So when you sit down, it doesn't wear a hole so easy. And they often got the thigh pockets and everything already on them. And you can pick up a pair, like at the surplus place I go to. They have the big, huge bins of military surplus uniforms. And it's like $10 for a pair of pants or a shirt. Pick what fits, and just start walking around. You can outfit yourself a lot cheaper. First, determine what gear do I need? What need do I have? Fire. What gear am I going to carry to answer that question? I need something that produces flame and is waterproof. And I need a tinder that will work even when it's been wet. Get those two. That's got your basic fire kit. Now I branch that out to other types of tinder, other ways of starting a fire, etc. Clothing. Go look at Goodwill or whatever. Ain't got a lot of money. Find a pair of boots that somebody bought as work boots and didn't fit them. And pick them up at a yard sale or something for $20 or $10. When I took Dan to that military surplus place, Dan had size 16 feet. And he was custom ordering his boots from a company that were $380 a set of boots. These were Marine Corps issue size 16 double E's, and they were $60 a piece. He bought 4 sets of boots, you know, because he found what worked. And don't be afraid to ask around with your friends and stuff. Anybody know where I can pick up like a cook set? You'd be amazed how many people say, "Oh, I got some in the closet, man. 10 years ago we camped and I gave that stuff up. Yeah, I'll give it to you." Be amazed if you ask what people will give you of cook stuff and kit and etc. I have been on campouts and people brought out high dollar. I mean, wow, that's one of those skillet sets that the whole set's like $800. Where'd you get that? Found it at a yard sale. 2 or 3 of them burned up and they threw the whole set away. So I got the super fancy skillet for like $2. It'll happen. Very well, exactly. What do I need to make me comfortable and how long am I going to be here? How much work do I need to do? That was the thing that I try to teach when I'm teaching a class on building a survival shelter. Okay. 1, do I need one? Are the atmospheric conditions where I need it? It's cold, wet, or is it warm and dry? Why should I spend 2 hours building a waterproof, windproof survival shelter and my last 2 hours before daylight, before sundown, when it's going to be a low that night of 70 degrees and bone dry, clear skies? Why not just find a nice, comfortable place, make you a nest to sit on and build a fire in front of it and just lean back against a tree and go to sleep instead of doing all that effort? It's what are my needs? What can I do? And how long am I going to be here? If I'm going to build a shelter I'm only going to be here a matter of hours until I'm going to move on, or I'm going to be here till dawn, then I'm gone. It's going to be minimum. It's going to be enough to insulate me, keep the rain off of me, whatever. And that's it. Be able to get in it, roll around. That's about it. And when it gets daylight, I'm getting up and walking out. I don't want any, I got to build or tear anything down. On the other hand, am I going to be stuck here? The truck threw out a transmission. Nobody's coming to find me. There is no cell, and I've hurt my leg, and I ain't walking out. I'm going to be here. I'm going to make improvements to that shelter all day within reason. Give me something to do to make me more and more secure and comfortable. Because now I got nothing but time to play with it. That's what you do. CJ Garther, exactly. You've got to be adaptable. You've got to be able to look at what you have and adapt it. Come up with what you really need. I've said before, we're woodscrafters. We take what we got to make what we need. What, Mitch, what is your favorite meal to cook while camping? That's a good question. If I had to pick, and we got nothing but time, right? I would start by baking bread, a white dinner roll type bread, kind of fluffy, soft. I'd bake that first. Then I would let that cool, and then I would want to roast onions and garlic in butter. And then once those are right, then I would want to set them to the side and bake potatoes and carrots. And then finally, I would take about a 2-inch thick elk steak. And if those of you who've never eaten elk before, when you eat elk, you'll never want a cow again. Back in the days when I had good teeth and I could eat them. Then take that pan that I made the onions and the garlic and that butter and add more butter to it. And I would put the steak into the fire and sear it. Then I'd put it in the pan and let it slowly finish to bring it up to like a uh, medium rare, more like a rare medium. And I think that would be my favorite meal that I used to love to cook a lot. We did at one of the big rendezvous, I did a buffalo hump with potatoes. I baked a cobbler. I baked bread, and there were 3 or 4 different vegetables and other things through it. So I love cooking. It's just if I had to pick right now, what kind of mine was that, you know? But now, what's my favorite canteen cup meal? Camp taters and spam. Take this like the spam single and cut it up in cubes. Put it in the bottom of the canteen cup. Put it on the heat and kind of fry on the own juices of the ham down in the bottom. Just kind of crispy it up just a little bit and get a little bit of that flavor and that oil out of it, and fill the cup about halfway up with water. After it's done cooking, leave the meat in it, just put water in it, bring it to a boil. As soon as it comes to a boil, slide it off, and you dump in camp taters, which is one measurement of instant mashed potatoes and a quarter measurement of instant brown gravy mixed together. That's powdered gravy into it, stirred up, so it's one mass. So it's meat and potatoes and all in the canteen cup. Sit and eat that. That stuff is hot, it's good, and it'll stick to your ribs for hours. So that's my favorite canteen cup meal to make real quick. That or cobbler. K-Town, yeah, hot dogs do work for bait. Favorite catfish bait. Okay, you ain't gonna like this. When we were running trot lines, we would get 2 tubs of chicken hearts. Okay, 1 tub of chicken liver, 1 tube of rotten shad. We would take a big garbage bag, open it up, dump that in the middle of it, put gloves on, mash all that together, fluff the bag up real big and tie it closed. So it's like a big bag, like a, you know, air bubble, and sit it out in hot sun for about 6, 7 hours. Oh, yeah. Now you go up and you pack Vicks Vapor Rub on your nose real heavy so it don't make you gag. When you open that up, let it air out, and then you want to take the chicken hearts and put individual chicken hearts that's been in this slurry now into a Ziploc bag, seal it up, and freeze it. And you pull that out while it's still frozen, hook it on the hook and put it out there. Chicken hearts are much tougher than liver, and it doesn't come off the hook as easy. And that funk, when it starts thawing out in the water, makes a cloud that just brings them like a dinner bell. And I have nearly broke trot lines where I had so many cats on it. So yeah, that's my all-time favorite catfish. But now everybody's gonna smell you a half mile away. But by God, catfish come to stink, and that stuff stinks. Chad, deer heart. I like to take deer hearts and fillet it out to open up all the chambers and clear them out real good and make stew out of them. Um, Stab it as well after you've um, split open the chambers to get all the blood out of it. And then just sit there and stab with a small blade pocket knife and just tenderize all of it and put it into a pot and boil it. And then once it started to get soft, then I'd add in all the other vegetables and boil it till it was good. Used to use a coffee can hobo type bush pot to cook deer heart in. It's good. Right. Gordon, about a 10 by 20 canvas car port and has walls and two doors. Install a tent stove. Any pointers? Okay, that big, a 10 by 20. You're going to need a pretty good size capacity wood stove. Don't get something that big. Get something, that you can put at least a 24 to 36-inch piece, about at least a 24-inch long piece of wood in. You want a chamber that's at least like 12 to 14, so you can put pretty good sized logs in. That big of an airspace is going to have to heat and set up convection currents in it to do. I would put in the base of the wood stove, put sand down if it doesn't have a grate, because the predominant thing that destroys a lot of the wood stoves is because of rusting. There's a chemical reaction where the lye and stuff that's in the hardwood ashes, that's how we used to make lye soap, remember? We would burn hardwood like oak and stuff, red oak especially, in a wood stove, and then we'd take all those ashes and put it into a box that got about 24 inches deep, and then we would drip water through it and let that percolate through it, and that's where the lye came from. Well, this lye helps dissolve metal, and so you put a layer of sand in the bottom of the stove to preserve the floor in the stove, and so when you pull your ashes out, pull it out. In the past, we just take a piece of heavy aluminum foil and double it in half and put it in the bottom, and that's what I intend to do with my little stove. And that way, when those wood ashes are falling down there, they're falling on aluminum. The aluminum is a sacrificial diode, so to speak. So that chemical reaction is done to the aluminum, not to the steel floor. And when you pull it out, you're always getting that off of it, rinse it out, etc. Also, some sort of way to recirculate the air. Heat's going to rise. On a 10 by 20, all your heat's going to be from waist up. So have something up in the ceiling, like a small box fan or something, even a battery-powered one, on the far end, away from the stove, at the height, aiming down. That will take the heat that is recirculating out up there and force it back down into the living column. So it's got to re-rise, and you'll get this circulatory going in such a device, in such a thing. I've seen 10 by 18 wall tents that have had a good wood stove in them be sealed up right, along the bottom, etc. And you'd be walking around there in a short sleeve t-shirt. It'd be 80 degrees in that tent, and it be in the teens outside. So it can be done, but like I said, how you run that stove is going to make or break your things. Get a big enough stove. That's the thing, so you don't have to go restock it every 5 minutes. Oh, yeah, gray wolf, stinky heads. My sister was in Alaska for a while. She talked about them. Briar goat killer. Yeah, cube up, heart muscle. Yeah, be a good way to do it. It's tough. Well, it depends on your deer, too. But for the most part, heart muscle is tough because it works all the time. That to get it tenderized, you got to just do something like that to soften that. That's the reason we take a small pocket knife and just did it. I can remember an individual who had a dart, like throwing darts, one of them dart heads, and it put a longer wood handle onto it, and they used it as a tenderizer for tough meat in the kitchen. They just laid up there on a wood board and go pop, 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 because he had like a 2-inch steel spike, worked good. Again, repurposing. Oh no. Gordon, a heat induction fan. Those are nice. I haven't had one. Don't get to use one down here, but I have seen it. I have friends that live in Alaska, and they have one. They have a wood stove on both ends of their house, and they have one of those heat induction fans sitting on top they got out of military surplus. I remember when those first, look at the price of them today. I remember when those first showed up in Sportsman's Guide as surplus, and everybody thought it was a joke, and they wanted $25 for them things. Now they're well over $100 each. They're like $25 when they first brought them out. coming out of surplus, putting them onto the surplus market, because that person didn't understand what they were looking at. But now wood stoves, oh yeah, those are awesome. Oh yeah, Chad, they do that in the South too. Whenever I killed my first deer, I had to drink blood. Granddaddy made sure I had to drink blood. I was 8 years old. Fred, absolutely. Don't get the. I have really good knives, expensive knives. Well, look what I do. So yeah, it's worth the investment to me. But don't ever think I look down at somebody that's got a $20 knife. That's best they can afford. That's best they can afford. I came from there. I sure did. I was poor, nothing. And so I did the best I could with what I could find. I carried a butcher knife, old hickory butcher knife, a lot. You know, um, that I pointed out one of my videos, but I found out a long time ago a K-bar sheath. Old hickory butcher knife will fit a K-bar sheath real easy, and used it a lot as a knife because I couldn't afford anything better. You know, and so always, use the best you can. And it's always a good idea to even try the, as I used to say about Mr. Kachansky, Morris Kachansky, if you handed him a $1, the Dollar Tree kitchen knife, the one I'm talking about, the stainless steel thing with the stainless steel handle, the super thin piece of junk that they call a kitchen knife. If you handed it to him with his skill level, he'd be able to sharpen it and use it, make it actually look good. Is it a good knife? No. But with his skill and experience, again, experience and ignorance, he knew how to avoid the weaknesses and would know how to utilize that blade. And at the same time, appreciate at the first opportunity, upgrade to something better than this. But if that's all he had, he'd make that thing sing. You wouldn't believe how good he could make it work. I was asked to teach a class as part of a church group, and they wanted to learn knife skills and etc. And so I gave that morning at 8 o'clock. I gave everybody one of them $1 kitchen knives that I had sharpened them. And from 8 o'clock to 12, we did the tri stick, and I had mimosa limbs, which are really soft and easy to carve. And we tried carving pot hooks, 7 notches, reductions, squares, all of the above. And they struggled. They really did doing it. And I worked with every one of them, how to hold your hand, stuff like that. But from 8 o'clock to 12, we did that. 2 of the knives got broke. I think they were like, I want to say it was like 18 or 19 people in this group. We had lunch. After lunch, we went back, and now I gave them all a Mora knife that was properly sharpened. You wouldn't believe the sudden increase in skill level because they now had a decent knife, and it fit the hand, and it was really set up for the job at hand. And man, they were whipping out, what's there, okay, carve a 7-notch. There you go, like that. You know what they got? They got experience, because they started out with that piece of junk, and now they've got a much better knife, and they can recognize that better knife. And now their experience is talking that they learned on that from ignorance to experience. And so now they can appreciate it more. And every one of them, that was their gift, to keep the Mora knife. It's just one of the cheap Mora clippers. But every one of them was, that become the knife of the universe to them. And months later, I was running into, in the grocery store and stuff, and the wife would be telling me about how that's her favorite kitchen knife, how she's boning chicken with it and everything else. A little bit of experience. It's not, it doesn't have to be expensive to be good. Simple Man Duke, glad to do it. That's what I'm here for. Hello, Ryan. How you doing tonight? The whole purpose of me doing my channel and everything is this, is to share with you, is to take all the years of me bugging my elders on how to do this stuff and pass it on to you. That's my legacy in my mind, is to pass the information on. I can't take it with me. Well, you know what I mean? I can't leave it here for y'all. And I wish, if they could come up with a way, that I could just go, mumbo jumbo and poof, you could have 40 years experience of doing this. I would do it in a heartbeat. Hello, Diane. Good evening. But at the same time, you've got to put in your time. You've got to have the dirt time, get dirty. Failure teaches you everything. Success teaches you nothing. Failure teaches you everything. You got to get fail again. It's okay to fail. Let's keep going. Fail. First attempt in learning. Keep going. And after a while, you turn around and realize, oh, yeah, I can do that. So. Uh, ADK Mountains. I said earlier, Bear is actually in the chat thing. He has got we got his computer this week, and by the end of the month, he's got tons of content. Now this week, I got him his computer set up with all the editing software and everything he needs that he knows how to use. I've been teaching him, and so by the end of this month, it'll be up and rolling where he'll be posting on his own regularly. That's the idea. K-Town, have you done leatherworking? Yeah, quite a bit for Living History. I did shop bags, shop pouches, all kinds of leather projects for Living History. The biggest thing I can say I built off the top of my head is a valise, which is kind of like a small suitcase. Out of it, lots and lots of shooting and shop bags. In fact, the one I've showed in the video not long ago about the muzzleloading rifle, that's an old one of mine. I've got an elk bag I made, so I've done quite a bit of leather working over time. John, correct, unless that's all you got. Kitchen knives are usually bigger and broader, and they're really meant for slice and draw rather than tight turns. Paring knife's not bad. It just, what you're doing and what you're teaching. Teaching the little ones, one of my favorite things to do teaching the little ones was go get those 4-bar sets of ivory soap and take a bar of soap and give them a knife, and we'd sit there and carve little animals out. You take your knife and trace out the shape of the kitty cat, now cut everything away. Now turn him this way. Now put the V for his ears and make little kitty cats, and all the chips that came off of the soap were saved, on top of a newspaper or something. And then you would put them into a jar, add just a little bit of water, make soft soap for using it in the kitchen. So nothing was wasted, but it was a way of teaching knife skills to a little one. Like we're talking like 7, 8, 9-year-old under very close supervision. I've had to carve, teach them how to carve and whittle on soap. Don't hurt nothing. John, what do I do with knives that I no longer use, want, or need? Quite often I pass them on. If I've got a knife that just doesn't fit in my, playlist, so to speak, anymore, I'll pass them on to somebody. And that's what I did with almost all of the WC test knives that were sent to me, that I tested them. And then whenever I was done with it, if it was something that I liked, I kept. If I didn't, we would say just pass it on. And so I found a couple of vets over the years that were going into combat, needed a good knife. I said, if you like this design, I'll give you the knife. And other knives that I've gotten and tried and used. And I still got 95% of my pocket knives. I mean, I just got a bucket of pocket knives. But the big belt knives and stuff, I've utilized them. I give them away at my events. The Martini that I recently got, I'll utilize. I like it. It's thin and playing with it, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be one of the door prizes at my gathering. I'll just give them away. Give them to somebody that needs them, especially somebody that ain't got a lot of money and kind of struggling. That's when I want to make sure to get them something. Yeah, Chad, the $20 cold steel kukri machete, the short one. Yeah, rides in the door of my truck is a everyday carry for that truck. Actually, a good piece of steel. Take a file, sharpen it up, does a good job. It won't perform as well as my actual made in Nepal kukri, but I've cleared a lot of land with that thing. It's a good machete that's shaped like a kukri and does a good job. And if it gets gone, it's a $25 knife, you know. Okay. Uh 22,630. A healthy respect is natural, especially if you've not been in the environment. So that's natural. The good news is you can immerse yourself into that environment at your pace. Okay. Now, how I mean is this, just like getting in a swimming pool, find a place that seems interesting to you, you know, let's say a park or something or a camp area or whatever. It's got good light, okay, like a campground with good light in it. Go over there to spend the night. If you feel uncomfortable and need to go home, just go home. There's no shame, there's no nothing with that because everybody has their own ability and etc. That goes. And you once you give your again, be willing to fail. Say, dang it, I just didn't able to do that. Okay, try again. Can I go a little longer? Last time I made it to midnight. Can I make it to 2 in the morning? Can I make it to 3? Can I make it to 4? Before you know it, you've been there all night. I had a good friend of mine that he had a couple of issues, and being out after dark bothered him. It was PTSD from combat, and so he was wanting to address these. I want to be able to go back camping, but as soon as the sun starts going down, I start getting all tensed up. I said, okay. Got a lot of coffee? Yeah. I said, I got a back deck. So he came over with all the lights going. We went out and sat on the back deck. And we sat on the back deck and drank coffee and talked all night. Only when the sun come up did we call it quits. And I said, do you feel comfortable? I said, well, yeah, we're just sitting here. That's fine. It's dark everywhere else. Can you tell what that star is? And we'd sit and point out. And then the next time he came over and did it, I turned out the big outside deck lights were just the light coming out of the window where we were sitting. And he did fine. And he desensitized to me and him did a 3-day canoe trip. Not long, about 4 months after we started that, into some real hairy, swampy areas. There's a lot of things making noise out there, you know, but you can decompress to it. It's everybody has a fear of something, you know, and I never look down because everybody's afraid of something. You know, there's, oh, I'm not afraid of nothing. I bet if they threw your ass out a door at 20,000 feet, you'd be afraid of falling, you know, parachute or not. So everybody's got something. I've got a good friends of mine that are combat veterans, been in special forces, a lot of hairy stuff, jump out of a plane, all that stuff doesn't bother him. Oh no, put him in city traffic in Atlanta or something. He wigs out. It scares the bejesus out of him. His wife has to drive. He just has to sit there and get a book and just focus on it. Don't look out because all the cars going around just terrifies him. And yet this guy's been decorated multiple times for in combat for pure bravery. Doesn't matter, bullets are flying, things blowing up, doesn't bother him. Traffic scares him. I know another guy that he had over 1,000 parachute jumps, and he's scared of heights, but he was in the military and he had to do it. He said, I'd go out the door and close my eyes. I'd feel the chute open up, and I'd start counting. And only when that wrist thing went, did I ever open my eyes and look, you know. And he said, I'll fall 15 or 1,600 feet before I open my eyes, because he hated the heights. And yet he had got to where he could jump out of a plane with a parachute, you know. My blood brother, spiders. Ain't scared of snakes, alligators, nothing. Spiders. Little bitty old granddaddy long legs will just send him up the tree. And everybody's got a thing, you know. It's okay. Find what it is and adapt. And you'd be amazed. You know, everybody's human. Everybody's human. Yeah, rumble strip. I hear you. I had a good friend of mine that uh, young lady, and she had a big fear of firearms. And so we sat down and talked about, so why are you afraid of firearms? Was there something that had happened that caused this? You know, no. And so through trial and error, we figured out that it basically had been some sort of little choice that she had made as a little girl, that they were going to go shoot, and she didn't want to go because the noise was going to be loud, and she kind of reinforced it all this time. And so she wanted to get over that fear. And so we started out by looking at pictures of firearms and us talking about them. And since I used to be a firearms instructor, we looked at them, we talked about them. Eventually, she sits here, and I'm on the far side of the table, and I have a taken apart firearm. And we talk about mechanically what each part does and why. How it's a simple mechanical device. And the next time was a more complicated and put together. And bit by bit, we assembled parts. She would hold each of the parts, and then later it was holding each of the sub-assemblies until the day come where she could hold the whole thing and realize it's no different. It's a mechanical device, just like a hammer or a can opener or a pressure cooker or anything else. It is by itself like this with no ammunition, nothing, just a mechanical device. And then that progressed to her going and hers being behind the line and me going up, halfway up the line and shooting. And then showing her how to make sure the gun was safe, how to make sure that everything was perfectly safe. There was not going to be no dangers. And eventually, after a number of months, she got to where she was shooting herself and felt confident enough to be able to fill strip, put it back together, and shoot, and etc. You just immerse yourself in it at your pace and find out. I had a girlfriend when I was in high school, clowns. I mean, would just lose her mind at a clown. Something from her childhood had put that in her head to be afraid of it. And so, you know, everybody's got a fear of something. You know, if you dig deep enough, they're afraid of something. A lot of times it's something that don't. We kind of look at like you're scared of teddy bears, you know, and yet you can say you're scared of sharks. Well, I understand sharks because everybody thinks, well, I could be scared of that too. But everybody has a fear of something. Um, but mostly especially those that are afraid of going into the woods and stuff, is the fear of the unknown, the fear of I can't see it, the fear of it being there. Is it because you watched too many scary boo horror movies as a kid, and the idea of the thing coming out of the dark and grabbing you or whatever, or monsters or whatever? Perfectly viable. Anybody can be conditioned to be afraid or unafraid. It's usually some sort of stimulus. I was, as a small child, I've heard. I was scared to death of thunder and lightning. Just couldn't stand it. And the story goes that when I was 3, because I was born crippled and I didn't learn to walk till I turned 5, or right at 5. I had a cast on from the hip down because they were building me an ankle, and that my granddaddy took me out on the back porch and sat down in the chair, put me in his lap, and put the blanket around the two of us with a big electrical storm coming. And that little bitty old back porch was only like 8 by 6 feet. I mean, you might as well been you just out of the rain. But other than that, you felt like you were outside. There was not a big shelter over you. And lightning was going boom and bam, flashing through the sky. And every time it went bang and went, I'd jump out of my skin, and my granddaddy would whisper in my ear, "It missed. If you hear it go bang, it missed." And the story goes that after maybe a half hour or an hour of it, that it went bang, and he heard me say, "It missed." And by a month or 2 after that, I didn't jump anymore. And if I heard it go bang, I knew it missed me. So it can't hurt you because it missed you, right? So I had a fear of thunder and lightning. I have gotten over that. And like anybody else, when lightning hits within 50 yards or 100 yards and goes bam, you jump out of your skin. That's just normal human reaction, But at the same time, just because I see lightning, I don't get upset, because if it missed, it don't matter. And if it didn't miss, it kind of don't matter either. So just minimize the problem and go with it. K-Tone, yeah. I had my good friend Dan Lutz. He wanted to come down here to the south and wanted to go to the swamps. And I told him I'd take him north of Mobile into the Delta. And that's 300 and something thousand acres of just bayou and creeks and tidal areas and swamp. And I mean, yeah, big gators, big snakes. But man, what an adventure, because it's just channels and islands and everything else. And if you try to look at a satellite image of it, it looks like you're looking at a brain, all the ridges and everything. It's just, Now he wanted to come down and us go there. And I said, sure, I'll take you down there and we'll look at this, look at that. And then this big guy, who's been a trapper, he's been his whole life in the woods up in Ohio and etc. 6'8", 400 pounds. Fantastic shot. He calls me up and says, "I'm not coming. We're not doing this." And I went, "Why?" He said, "I seen how big your gators are." Hell no. I'm not getting anywhere near them things. So gators ain't that bad, but not accustomed to gators. I can understand that. It's a natural fear. So even something as big as him. You want to know the animal that most fascinated him at my event? An armadillo. He'd never seen one. So you got these armadillos. And for those of you that don't know, armadillos just walk around you, ignoring you as long as you ignore them. And he was sitting there with a flashlight and his cane, following it around. It's just sitting there hunting for its ants and stuff. It care less. But little bitty armadillo about that big. It's like one of them kitty footballs. It was so small. That just fascinated him, But at the same time, the idea of being in the woods with alligators was, they're dinosaurs. I'd be that way if you dropped me in the middle of New York City or Chicago. I'd be a little nervous. I'm not a city kid. So it's a different world. You just adapt to where you are. Correct, Farrell. Small voluntary exposure. Be willing to, don't beat yourself up. Just say, okay, this don't work out. We'll try again later until you get past it. And then once you do, the question is, do I want to get past this? Yes. then let's do it. Little at the time. When I start to feel, oh my God, get out of it. If you hit a hurdle that you just can't get past this hurdle, find a buddy, talk to them. If you get past that hurdle, once you get past them hurdles, you will be amazed how much further you get. On day one, that young lady would have never believed that 6 months later she'd own her own firearm and be going out and shooting for fun. Never, you know. My friend that's afraid of heights would never have, when he was a teenager, if you'd told him you're going to go in the military and going to have over 1,000 combat jumps or 1,000 parachute jumps in the military. No way are you ever getting me off the ground. And yet he wanted to be in this military for a good enough reason, and he was good at it and willing to do it. He was willing to face his fear in order to do this. Growth requires some pain sometimes. Sometimes it's emotional pain, sometimes it's physical pain. But as long as it brings growth, and we recognize it brings growth, it's usually worth it, you know. Even to the point of you going, you know, I really can't do that. You know, everybody's got a fear of something. And I, like my friend, my blood brother, he has no desire to ever own a spider, have a pet tarantula or whatever. He can't even hardly look at a picture of one that is just going white. It's so fearful. But because of that, I said, then you need to educate yourself about what you're looking at. If you are this afraid of this, I've told this to many people who are afraid of snake. If you're that afraid of snake, you need to become an expert on snake. So by sight, you can tell if that's a venomous snake or not, how aggressive it is, etc. To protect yourself, you know, it's like knowing all the bad guys. You know, you want to be Batman? That's cool. Here's all the bad guys. You got to memorize what they do. And if you don't want to look at the picture, just read about it. And the more you know, the less scary they become. Because you get to where you can figure out, and the guy that runs a local snake club, herpetology group down here, when I had met him years ago, I don't know him well, but I just am an associate. And there was a garden snake had got into his grandmother's kitchen, and his grandmother just caught it because you knew it was a garden snake. A green snake doesn't, you know, she just picked it up, and it utterly scared the fool out of him because of something he'd seen somewhere in a movie or whatever, and it scared him. And she took him out on the back porch and had him sit down and said, "You're not going to hold it, but I want you to just look at it a minute. Here, see it breathing? You know, see its little eyes, and that, you know, why it sticks its tongue out. That's how it tastes the air. That's how it's smelling you. This is its tail." And she took the time to kind of pull back some of that fear, turn it from a demon into a living thing. And so the only thing this wants to do is get away from you. The only reason it was in here was by accident. So let's turn it loose. He said she went and turned it loose. And after that, every year when he came to spend the summer with his grandmother, she would make a point of them walking around, and she'd point out snakes that lived in the fields and stuff like that around the houses, so he would know that it's a bad snake or not. And he said that's how I became educated and ended up being part of a snake club, because he got to where he could identify them on sight. No, oh, that's okay. Oh, that's bad. You know, that type deal. Knowledge is power. K-Town cougars and the big cats and stuff. You really don't have to worry about it too much. They pretty much want to leave you alone. Cats are really good predators, and they normally know their job really well. And we're kind of big. Now, having said that, you always, animals have personalities just like us. And you can have one that's starving, got a problem, and so hadn't been able to feed right, and we just look like an easy target, or whatever. One that was born ticked off, But usually you don't have to worry about big cats and stuff because they're going to avoid you. And if they come at you, they're going to come at you from the back because they want to grab the back of the neck. And even then, we're just a little too big, for them to mess with. They see us as a predator. And I tell people if, carry a gun. Animals educate themselves to recognize a gun. And those that don't want to carry a gun, get a stick and carry it like you're carrying a gun. And the silhouette of a human holding, is enough because they're trained to realize that's a hunter, and they'll leave you alone. Make them where they avoid you. Instead of trying to hide from them, make them hide from you. One of the guys on the Alone TV show who had dealt with some bears and stuff. And me and him had been talking, and he said, what would have I done differently? I said, every day I'd have thrown my head back and I'd have rebel yelled just as loud as I could and made sure every couple of hours I made a big noise of some kind. I wanted to spook the local wildlife. If I've got a problem with bear or something like that idea, I want them to know there's a human over here. And that, instead of trying to hide from it, go big, If you see a bear, holler at that thing, start throwing crap at them, go toward it if it's far enough away. You know what I mean? If it gives ground and starts to go away from you, throw stuff at it and yell and scream at it. Try to inspire in it a fear of you because you are the big predator, remember? On the other hand, if he gets all stiff and looks at you, well, then don't get any closer. Just make a lot of noise. It depends on what it is. But the bottom line is you are the biggest predator, and 99% of the animals in the world try to avoid us when they can, because we are the big predator. Oh, cool. You got brown bears back in Texas. That's cool. Oh yeah, the sound. If you hear that growl, that huff, that's the sound of displeasure. That don't mean it's aggressive. It's sort of it saying, "Oh crap," you know. Um, all cats communicate a certain way. I remember seeing a thing that made me kind of laugh. Down here, just south of me, there's a couple that they raise big cats for zoos and things like that from infants up. And so, like when you go to Busch Gardens or some of these other zoos, these are their cats that are hand reared. These are animals that are going to be in captivity their whole life, and they have to be around humans a lot. So they're hand raised. And that time was the biggest tiger in the world, and its name was Ishapur. And Ishapur was a Siberian tiger and was right at 1,000 pounds. And this was back in the 70s, when it sat on the ground on its butt with its head up, it was eye level with a standing adult. They took one of them big old huge bottles that big, like you give to cows, to bottle filled cows, and that's what it was. They never let it eat meat. They only bottle fed it. And they raised and etc. this big cat. And he talked, the guy that was doing it, and they had him on TV several times with Ishapur before Ishapur finally ended up at Busch Gardens in Florida. And in fact, the local TV crew went with him when they were turning him loose into his enclosure down there. And it was this tearful moment where mom and dad are saying goodbye to the big cat, so to speak. Of course, they're going to come visit, of course. And Ishapur is wrapping his big old huge arms around mom and dad and rubbing on them, loving them. And then he bounds over the bushes and he went out into his enclosure, and mom's crying and stuff like that. And then Ishapur come running back, scared to death, because there was a baby raccoon at the bottom of a tree over there. And this 1,000-pound tiger was scared out of its mind because it'd never seen any other animals before, other than humans. It'd seen humans. That was it. And so a baby raccoon scared the crap out of it. But the guy that did it, I remember on one of it, they had recorded that guttural sound that Ishapur was making. And he said, you got to understand, he said, when you change it, bring down the octave, it's purring. But he's so massive, the big cats like the bobcats and the mountain lions, they're so big. When they make that, what we would consider a house cat purr, it sounds like a growl because he's so bigger and his throat's bigger. So it sounds more like he's growling at you, but he's actually purring. So, I never considered the fact a 1,000-pound tiger would, purr. Anyway, well, guys, it's been an hour and 35. I think we're going to call it quits a little early tonight. I'm going to go in and take me a nice hot shower and call it quits for the day. It's been a long day, and we got cool weather coming in, and my old bones is, I'm crispy critter tonight. So, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. We'll do it again next week. I appreciate y'all's support, and I'll go back and read through all the comments and everything afterwards. And so if you got a question, throw it in there. Be glad to do it. Bear, John, Justin, Mr. Kennedy, all of y'all are in tonight. Thank you very much for showing up. Really appreciate it. Till next time, guys, y'all have a great night, and talk to you later.